let us bring in retired acting ICE Director Tom Homan. Tom, you just heard Marianne say that this could be a nightmare before Christmas because Title 42 is going to end right around the holidays, and we are expecting a flood of migrants to pour into the country. In response to that, what do you make of the situation, and also the fact that this camp was just cleared by Mexican officials on the Mexican side of the border? Why did Mexico target that camp specifically?
My guess is they were asked by this administration to do it. They're trying to lessen the blow that's going to happen when they end Title 42. So they're trying to control the optics. So, you know, getting rid of this camp's going to give them a little bit better picture for the first day when Title 42 gets exhausted. Look, this administration, I've been saying this for the last 2 years, this administration, everything they do is about optics. They send more agents to the border, not to secure the border, not to enforce the law, but to process aliens quicker, release them quicker, so there's not overcrowding. Because if there's not overcrowding, they can claim there's no crisis, like the Secretary still claims today. There's no crisis at the border.
I'm looking at this from a political lens, or through a political lens, Tom. Obviously, they weren't going to do anything prior to the midterms because they wanted the optics, like you mentioned, to be on their side. But the midterms are over. There's not going to be another national election for another 2 years. Where is the border czar, Kamala Harris, doing something to solve this problem and what is anticipated to be an even bigger problem on December 21st?
Look, they don't want to solve the problem. Again, no one in this administration can give me one example. Give me one thing that you have done to slow the flow. They did nothing. Now, they're all up in arms with Title 42. Oh, we're going to get 18,000 a day. Well, you can address that. Re-implement the Remain in Mexico program. Very effective program. People can still claim asylum, but they're going to wait in Mexico for the hearing. No, they still get their due process, but they wait in Mexico. Why not re-implement that? Because they don't want to fix this. President Biden ran on open borders. He signed 90 executive orders abolishing everything we did under the Trump administration to give us the most secure border in my lifetime. They don't want to fix this. Kamala Harris was picked as the border czar because they know she's incompetent. As a senator, she supported amnesty. She supported open borders. And they pick her as the border czar? That's not accident. That's by design.
Yeah, Tom, the Biden administration, they're not going to go back to the Remain in Mexico policy. But they did say that when Title 42 ends, they're going to implement Title 8. What does that mean?
Title 8 just means they're going to, process them to see an immigration judge. It's, 8 U.S.C. 1325 is the legal entry. Now, they're not going to prosecute anybody. They're going to prosecute. They're just going to process on Title 8, which under the Trump administration meant you will be detained until you see a judge. That's another thing this administration is doing. They're not detaining anybody. They're releasing them. And why are they doing that? I want people to know this. Why are they not detaining them? Because the Department of Homeland Security Life Cycle Report says this. If you're ordered removed and you're a family unit, you leave 6% of the time. If you're an unaccompanied child, you leave 3% of the time. If you're a single adult, you leave 16% of the time. They also know that based on immigration court data, nearly 9 out of 10 will not get relief from U.S. courts, so they simply don't qualify. So what happens to that 90% that don't qualify? They don't get removed because they're not detained. If they're detained, they're removed 98% of the time. Yeah. That's why they're not being detained, because they don't want them to leave.
So it'll just go back to catch and release.
There are those that are trying to defend our borders. They're called states. And now the Supreme Court's going to hear a challenge to President Biden's immigration policy today. You testified as an expert witness in the lower courts in this case. At issue, a lawsuit filed by Texas and Louisiana over a DHS policy halting most deportations while prioritizing only those deemed a serious threat to public safety. Texas and Louisiana said you need to deport people if under federal law they should be deported, not some litmus test that you have. I look at this, Tom, and I say basically, isn't the Biden administration trying to make, quote unquote, not following the law the actual new law?
Or it violates the what's in the federal statute. I testified for several hours in Houston. I never thought I'd have to retire and sue a president, but that's what we did. Because the law says they must detain those convicted of drug offenses, those convicted of crimes involving moral turpitude, and those with final orders. And Mayorkas' memo simply doesn't allow ICE to do that. There are over 800,000 illegal aliens in this country who had due process and were ordered removed by an immigration judge. ICE isn't allowed to go look for them and remove them.